Mamish. All right, so we'll say, let us begin. So we are picking up in Mirz Hashem at the Mishnah on Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph. So we got up to the Mishnah, Baruch Hashem. So let's go. Maskirin Gvuras Geshamim B'Tchias Hamesim. So we go ahead and we mention Gvuras Geshamim. Gvuras Geshamim is Mash Shivarach Morid Agashem. So we mention that ultimately in the bracha of Tchias Hamesim, Mechai Mesim Mato, V'She'ila B'Berachos Hashanim, and we recite the same Talumato Livracha, which is the request for rain, in Barich Aleinu. V'Havdalah B'Chonin Adas, and we recite Havdalah in the bracha of Chonin Adas, Ata Chonin LaAdam Das, where we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving man wisdom. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Bracha Raviyas B'Fnei Atzma. Rabbi Akiva says that we say, no, Havdalah, Ata Chonin Tanu, is actually its own independent bracha. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Ba'odah, and Rabbi Eliezer says that we actually recite Havdalah in Modim. Okay, so interesting machlokes. So it's interesting. So no machlokes about Mashavarach Merad Agashem. Everyone is agreeing that Allah Lamaisa, we say that in Mechai Mesimata, right? Everyone is agreeing that the same Talamata Livracha, request for rain, is given in Barich Aleinu, and the machlokes ultimately again is in Havdalah. Where does Havdalah go? So Tanakama in Atachonin LaAdam Das, Rabbi Akiva, its own independent bracha, and Rabbi Eliezer in Modim. All right, so let's analyze. Says the Gemara, Maskirin Gvuras Geshamim, my taima. So I will say. So now remember, this is actually interesting to contemplate. Why do we recite Mash Shivarach Morid Agashem in the bracha of Tchias Hamesim? Remember again, I will say the bracha of Mechalkel Chaim. That bracha ends up bracha to Hashem Mechai Hamesim, and that's about resurrection of the dead. So why is the mentioning of rain in the bracha of Tchias Hamesim? My time, Amrav Yosef, mitoch sheshkula kitchias hamesim, lefichach kavuha b'tchias hamesim. So I'll say this is the Gemara Maseches Tainis. So the Gemara explains very beautifully that rainfall is equated with Tchias Hamesim, with resurrection of the dead. The idea over here, there's a lot of connections, but the same way ultimately again that rain brings forth life. So to again Tchias Hamesim, resurrection of the dead, represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu bringing back life to this world. So therefore again, Mash Shivaruach Morid Agashem, which I just want to point out is not a request for rain. It's not a request. The request is the same Talamat Livracha. It's a Hazkara. It's a remembrance of rain, but rain is mentioned for the first time in the bracha of Tchias Hamesim. Very beautiful. U'she'ila b'Berachos Hashanim, and we ask for rain, the same Talumat Livracha, in the bracha of Barich Aleinu. My time, what's the reason for that? Amar Rav Yosef, mitoch shehi parnasa, lefichach kavuha b'berachas parnasa. So remember again, the bracha of Barich Aleinu is the bracha of parnasa. The bracha where we ask livelihood from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore the Gemara says over here like this, the Gemara says, so since Barich Aleinu is parnasa, and rain represents parnasa, therefore Allah Chalamais, we ask for rain in the bracha of parnasa. Jo says, obviously like one of the big distinctions between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz is how we relate to rain. Right? Outside of Eretz Yisrael, rain is a major inconvenience. In Eretz Yisrael, it's if ever in Eretz Yisrael when it rains, like it's mamish simcha. Rain today in Eretz Yisrael. Mamish like a big simcha. Why? Because rain represents everything. Rain represents life. Rain represents Tchias Hamesim. Rain represents parnasa. Havdalah b'chonin adas was a beautiful Gemara. We make Havdalah in chonin adas. Remember again, Ata chonin LaAdam Das, and we in our case, a little bit of a spoiler alert. We know that this is how we paskin, that we say Havdalah as part of Ata chonin LaAdam Das. So remember again, Ata chonin LaAdam Das is where we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we acknowledge HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives man wisdom and intellect. So why don't we recite Havdalah in Chonin Adas? This is so beautiful. Amar Rabbi Yosef, mitoch shei chachma, kavua b'berachas chachma. So Rabbi says, so this is incredible. Havdalah, we'll say, what's Havdalah? Havdalah means the ability to distinguish between that which is Kodesh and Chol. The ability to distinguish between that which is holy and profane. The ability to distinguish between that which is Tameh and Tahar, between that which is Kodesh and Chol, between that which is Mutter and Aser. How do you know how to distinguish those things? What do you need? Chachma. You need wisdom. So where do we recite Havdalah? I will say, you have to understand, it's always an incredible thing if you think about it, that we start the week with Havdalah. It's so interesting. Why is that how we start the week? Because what we're acknowledging is the most important thing in this world is the ability to distinguish between good and evil, between right and wrong. So we are living in times where we see what happens when people do not have moral clarity, and when people do not know what's up and what's down, and they don't know what is kodesh, what is chol, what is tameh, what is tar, what is mutter, what is aser. You can ruin a world. You can ruin a society if you don't know how to make havdalah. You can ruin your life by not knowing how to make havdalah. So, right? We've all had moments in life where we've lacked moral clarity and we made very poor decisions, not because we wanted to do the wrong thing, but just because we weren't tuned in enough on the right frequency to know what's kasher, what's treif, what's tameh, what's tar, what's kodesh, what's chol. So therefore Chazal said, we put the bracha of Ata Chanatanu Havdalah in Ata Chonin La'adam Da'as. Because to make real Havdalah in life, you need a lot of wisdom. Such an incredible Gemara. The Gemara goes right there. So the Gemara says, Am Rabbi Yosef mitoch good. The Rabbanon say, mitoch shehi chol lefichach kavua beberachas chol. So the Chachamim, the Rabbanon took on a different approach. The Rabbanim said, no, it's much simpler. Havdalah represents the end of Shabbos, the beginning of the weekday. So therefore, where do you put that bracha of Havdalah? Where do you put it? In the first weekday bracha. What's the first weekday bracha? Atachonin la'adam das. So much less dramatic. All right, I'm Rabbi Ami. Gidola Deya. So knowledge or wisdom is great. Shenitna betchilas bracha shalcha. So I will say, by the way, you just want to see something interesting. It is fascinating to see that the first thing that we kind of like ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for is das, is wisdom. Ata chonin la'adam das is the first bracha in the bakasha, in the request section. Right, so we're asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have slach lanu avinu ki chatanu, we have hashivinu avinu v'sarasecha, right? But ata chonin la'adam das. Ata chonin la'adam das. I'm sorry? Das is understanding. Understanding, right? All these in English, all these words are interchangeable. In Hebrew, each of these words mean different things, right? There's chachma, there's bina, there's das. Each of these things represent different levels of understanding. But for our purposes tonight, Ata chonin la'adam das means HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you give us the ability to discern and to understand. To understand that. In other words, I don't have to go through life in ignoramus. And I don't have to go through life with my head buried in the sand. If I want to really understand what life is, if I really understand what I am, who I am, what I have the ability to do, I have the ability to figure that out. So Deya is great. Why? Shenitna betchilas bracha shalchol. It's given as the first weekday bracha. Am Rabbi Ami gedola das shenitna bein shtei osios. Das is great because it was given between two names of God. Quotes over here the pasuk Kikel Deos Hashem. So you see over here that Das, Deos, is written in between Kel and Hashem. So you see how great understanding is that it is written in between two letters of Hashem's name. Deya. It's the most incredible Gemara. Anyone who does not have Deya, who does not have understanding, Aser l'rachim alav. You cannot have compassion upon him. Shene Amar, Kilo am binosu, al kein lo yirachamenu osehu. So I will say, what does this mean? That if a person doesn't have Deya, you can't have Rachmanas on him? So I will say, this is a very profound yesod. There are people in life who choose to be ignorant. And there are people in life who choose not to understand. They make a conscious decision not to try to understand things. People like that, don't have any pity on them. Don't have any compassion on them. Why? Because they're making a conscious decision to live in the world of ignorance. And if a person makes a conscious decision to live in the world of ignorance, I would say, I'll tell you something amazing. It's amazing how these Gemaras just pop out with their contemporary relevance. There was somebody forwarded me an interview today about, this was when they still had the encampment by Columbia, and they were interviewing this young woman, and they were saying, with the kafia and everything, and they said to her, that when the students barricaded themselves in one of the halls, they were holding three of the janitors, three of the custodians, hostage. You weren't letting them out of the building. So they asked this girl, well, what do you say to that they held the hostages narrative? They held the hostages captive. And she said, that's a false narrative. So the interviewer said, what? She said, it's a false narrative. She said, the janitors said that they weren't allowed to leave the building. She said, no, that's a false narrative. And then the reporter asked, what do you say to the fact that Jewish students don't feel secure on campus? She says, that's a false narrative. So you realize, so that's this Gemara. V'chol mi she'ein bo de'ah. So you're choosing, you're scripting your own reality, and you're choosing to ignore. You want to believe in something, or you want to have a principled stance on something. Everybody's entitled to believe whatever they want, but to ignore reality, to pretend that reality doesn't exist and replace it with an alternate reality, that's kol mi she'ein bo de'ah. That's kol mi she'ein bo de'ah. And when somebody doesn't have de'ah, asl rachim alav. There's no rachmanis. There's no rachmanis for a person like that. That's because I will say it's stupidity, it's ignorance, but it's the distance between stupidity, ignorance, and pure evil is a very short distance. It's a very short distance. That's what Chazal are saying. The good news is, nothing that we're seeing is a new dynamic at all. This is the history of man and Chazal. This is who Chazal are talking about. Somebody chooses not to understand something. Asl rachim alav. The Gemara goes right to Shneimar kilo am binosu al kin lo yirachem en oseh. Am Rabbi Lazar Gadol Mikdash. The Beis Hamikdash is great. Why? Shenasan ben Beis Osios. The Beis Hamikdash is mentioned also in between two names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shneimar Pa'alta Hashem Mikdash Hashem. So once again, you see the word Mikdash mentioned in between two names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amar Rabbi Lazar, Kol Adam Sheyesh Bo De'ah. I will say, now watch how beautiful this is. A person who does have De'ah, a person who does have understanding. I will say, I just want to be clear. De'ah in this context does not mean a person who's smart, or does not mean a person who's wise, or an accomplished Talmid Chacham. Adam Sheyesh Bo De'ah means a person who is willing to live life with eyes open and is searching for a true understanding of things. I want to know the MS. So a person who lives life and he wants to know the MS, Kilo Nivna Beis HaMikdash Biyamav. Wow. So I will say any person who spends a lifetime trying to acquire De'ah, it's as if the Beis HaMikdash was built in his days. Why? De'ah nitna ben shtei osios. Just like De'ah is mentioned between two names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so Mikdash nasan ben shtei osios. The Beis HaMikdash is also mentioned between two names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I both say, what's the comparison? What does that mean? Any person who has De'ah, it's as if the Beis HaMikdash was built in his days. I both say, what? Ever think about this just a moment? I think about this a lot. But we want the Beis HaMikdash. What is it that we want? Right? When we see that we want the Beis HaMikdash, what is it that we want? What is it that we want? Because I often say this, Beis HaMikdash is not so pashut, right? Remember, there's only one Beis HaMikdash, right? So there's no Hashkama minyan, there's no modern Orthodox minyan, Haredi minyan, Aguda minyan, Young Israel minyan. I want the mechitza this high, this stuff, The rabbi speaks too long. No rabbi doesn't speak in the Beis HaMikdash. That's the good news, right? It's not let's say, but it's going to be a real culture shock, right? Because here, we love to run from place to place, and if something doesn't exactly fit my needs, somewhere else, and this, that, I gotta be like people like me who are all this. Beis HaMikdash comes, right? There's one, right? There's not the Agodas Yisrael Beis HaMikdash, the Young Israel Beis HaMikdash, right? The modern, the Haredi, the Haredi light, the modern light. There's one Beis HaMikdash. So let's say, sometimes you tell people I don't know if I want that. I'm sorry? We'll build a bama. Right? See, there's an eitzah. Right? There's no backyard minyan, there's no garage minyan, there's no block minyan. There's a Beis HaMikdash. There's a Beis HaMikdash. And that's where you go. Which is very off-putting for some people, unfortunately, because some of us like to retreat into our different communal corners. But, so what is it that we're looking for when we want a Beis HaMikdash? So, I'm sorry? So we're looking for, I would even use a different word. Beis HaMikdash provides clarity. When there is a Beis HaMikdash, that means that there is a heightened level of presence of the Shekhinah in this world. And when you have a heightened presence of Shekhinah in this world, there is clarity. There's clarity. That's what the Beis HaMikdash brings. Life looks clearer. I understand myself better. I understand the world better. There's clarity. I also think about this. From the moment that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, what does humanity, it's not just the Jewish people, what does humanity lack? Clarity. Remember, that's why the Beis HaMikdash, what does the Navi say? Ki beisi beis tefillah yikarei l'chol ha'amim. The Beis HaMikdash is a house of prayer for all the nations. For all the nations, why? Because the Beis HaMikdash brings down the Shekhinah, and with the Shekhinah in this world, there is greater global clarity. Humanity, mankind understands things in a different way. That's why the Gemara says, if a person has Deya, what's Deya? It's not just simple understanding or intellect. It's a person desires to find clarity in life. I'm so tired of living in ambiguity. I will say, how many of us have parts of our lives, we all have this, that I know are in a state of disrepair? Right? No, don't raise your hand, right? Because then I have to raise my hand also, right? There are things in my life that I know I know that they're in a state of disrepair. So why don't I fix it? Because I have this incredible ability to explain why either maybe it's not really in disrepair, or even if it is in disrepair, it doesn't really need to be addressed right now. But in those moments when I'm alone with myself and I think about this, I'm like, I'm an idiot. That's not true. It's not true. Just fix it. Just deal with it. But why can't I get away with that? Because that's a world without a Beis HaMikdash. That's a life without clarity. Where there's no clarity, you can make excuses. How many of us are living, you know what I find? Then we really have to get back to it. You know what I find amazing? The most frustrating thing in life? That I'm doing tshuva for the same things every single Rosh Hashanah. I can honestly say, I have yet to really have a year where I discovered some new sin that I committed. Right? This year, I did that. I've never done this other year before, right? This was a year of firsts for me, right? New Year's resolution, let me try new things, right? So, it's interesting. I find that when I clap my Vida Yamim Noraim, it's the same stuff. Because I'm stuck. There are just certain things that I'm stuck in that I know that I need to get out of. I know I need to stop. I know I need to change. But for whatever the reason, in this world of ambiguity, I'm not getting my clarity together, and I'm not moving myself forward. The beauty of the Beis HaMikdash is it gives you clarity. When you have clarity, you don't live with this ambiguity. You have problems, we'll still commit Averos, that's the Beis HaMikdash as well. But then the Beis HaMikdash gives you the clarity to get your act together, fix what I have to fix, and move myself forward. That's why the Gemara says, if a person does have Deya, person does live life with a sense of clarity, we'll say, we know people like that. Even if I'm not yet there, I know people like that who just have such a strong sense of clarity. They know what's right, they know what's wrong. When they make mistakes, they own it, they fix it, they rebound from it, and they move forward. I'm jealous of people like that. A person like that who has that clarity, it's as if he has built the Beis HaMikdash in his days. Because he doesn't have to wait for the Beis HaMikdash in order to get that life. I will say, what incredible Gemara. We'll have to stop over here for tonight. Shkoyach, we'll pick up in Meretz Hashem tomorrow. Shkoyach, everyone. Shkoyach, Shmuel, for the delicious tea. Chamomile tonight.